What's up? It's Noah Taborda on college football. It's our Week 5 preview show, my second one. So yeah, obviously I am going to do this probably weekly. As I said last week, I wasn't sure, but I've decided, it's fun to do it. So if I have time, I'll do it. And this week I have time. So here we are. Contact information if you want to call in and, just discuss it. Have any questions or ideas you want to talk about or bounce off me. The number is 224-563-8444. Again, that is 224-563-8444. You can tweet me at Tibbs Taborda. Again, that is at Tibbs Taborda, capital T, IBS _ capital T, ABORDA. So yeah, call in, give me some ideas, give me all of that. And without further ado, let's dive straight into action in what is a considerably better week than last week. So really quickly, let's look at what happened last week. Not many good matchups. Clemson, not a big blowout as I expected, a 26-14 win. NC State did manage to compete for some of the game, but Clemson clearly the better team, and they end up winning by 12. Next up, Alabama against Colorado State. Alabama took this one 31-6, a little bit less than I expected as Colorado State's defense played averagely well, but they just weren't able to compete with that. Alabama clearly was the better team, and McCarron and Alabama are able to stay undefeated. Next up is Ohio State, Florida A&M, and Florida A&M was way outmatched. They put up a big goose egg in each of the quarters and in the final score, obviously, and Ohio State wins 76-0. Being an Ohio State fan, I really wanted to see them hit 100, and they could have if they continued to play like they did in the first half. But obviously, when you're up that big, you kind of take your foot off the gas. But still, a 76-0 win is a substantial blowout. Then in my upset pick, Arizona State was destroyed in the first half, going down 29-0. They did manage to put up 28 points, but it was not enough. You could see that Arizona State was a good team in the second half, but they just struggled out of the gate, and that really was their downfall in this game. They dropped out of the rankings, but I expect them to get back up in there soon. Next up, LSU-Auburn, another good game. LSU went up 21-0 at halftime, and after that, you knew that LSU had it in the bag. No matter how much Auburn fought back, 28-14 going into the fourth quarter, and Auburn was not able to pull it closer. And LSU looks good right now. They look like a team that could actually possibly compete maybe for that SEC title and maybe a spot in a BCS Bowl. Next up, the second big blowout, another goose egg, this time put up by Florida International as they go to 0-4 on the year. On the other side, Louisville goes to 4-0 on the year, winning 72-0 as Teddy Bridgewater threw for 4 touchdowns. Bethune-Cookman against Florida State, another weak team, and Florida State has no problems. Jameis Winston and Florida State roll to this win, 54-6. Georgia against North Texas, one of the most competitive games, and they managed to stay close for much of it. North Texas was in it. They were tied at 21 at one point, but Georgia was too much. Murray tops 400 yards as he continues his chase for the yardage record in the SEC, and they win 45-21. Texas A&M, SMU goes down 42-13, and Manziel continues to roll. UCLA easily topped New Mexico State. Brett Hundley was terrific as UCLA wins 59-13. Michigan, for the second straight week, was down going into the fourth quarter, down 21-14, and they managed to put up 10 points in the fourth quarter and win 24-21, but Michigan is not looking good at all. Miami with a big blowout. This time the team manages to put up a touchdown in the third quarter. Savannah State was heavily outmatched as Miami goes on to win 77-7. So many big blowouts, it wasn't like there was much competition. Another goose egg, Idaho State blanked 56-0 by UW as Washington and Price rolled to another win. They are now 3-0 on the season. Northwestern goes on to win 35-21 despite not playing their best football, but they are 4-0 And, really, the difference in this game, the 14 points were off of 2 defensive touchdowns. So Northwestern may need to figure out their offense a little bit, as Simeon and Coulter were not able to go for over 100 yards. Florida beats Tennessee 31-17. Tight for most of the game, but they lost Jeff Driscoll for the year. We'll talk about what that means for them this week and in the future. Baylor wins 70-7. This is I believe, their second time topping 70 points this year. Yeah, and they just missed it. In their 3 games, they've gotten 69, 70, and 70. So very close to going 70 on each game. You may attribute that to weakness of the schedule, but that's still a significant milestone mark. Notre Dame barely gets out of this one against Michigan State, 17-13, one of the best games of the week. Michigan State just couldn't win. They went into the fourth quarter tied at 10, but Notre Dame manages to outscore them 7-3 in the final quarter to win the game. Wisconsin beats Purdue 41-10. It was close at the beginning. At one point it was 14-10, but Wisconsin was just too much. Melvin Gordon just amazing in this game, and Wisconsin cruises to the win. In an in-Texas matchup, Texas Tech versus Texas State, and Texas State only able to put up 1 touchdown as Texas Tech win 33-7. One of the other big matchups, like I said, Minnesota was able to defeat San Jose State. I said this was key to see if they're really a team that can possibly, get in a good bowl game, and they look good in this game as they cruise to a win. And Fales continues to drop for San Jose State. And USC, one of the teams that Blake commented on, wanted to know about them, barely escaped 17-14. Things not looking good in Southern California. So now that I have talked about that, we can talk, and you look at all those weak games, now you can really look at that. So you see all of these blowouts, and this week is the polar opposite. I've never seen a kind of shift from such a weak schedule to one with so many good games. And if there's ever a week you wanted to watch football, this is definitely the week to do so. There's only one top 10 matchup, but it's still a terrific week. I believe, let's see, how many top? Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 top 25 matchups. That's a significant amount. The only top 10 is LSU Georgia, which we'll talk about later. But it's a good schedule. Lots of conference openers for a couple of teams like Ohio State and Oregon. So it should be a good week. I'm excited to see how this goes down. So let's jump into our first game, and we're going to start with the number 1 team in the country, Alabama, as they are playing at home. They host number 21 Ole Miss at Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa. Look for this to be a good matchup as Ole Miss and that highly touted freshman class, bringing in Nkemdiche, one of the best players, Robert Nkemdiche, Laramie Tunsil, obviously a phenomenal player. And Ole Miss was just cruised during that recruiting class, also bringing in Laquan Treadwell, one of the best wide receivers, Antonio Connor, Austin Golson, and Levon Hooks, all in the top 5 of their position. So they brought in a great class, really boosted this team. And Ole Miss has been playing very well. They picked up the season opener, struggled in that game, 39-35 over Vanderbilt, an FCS team. Oh, and sorry, that was a video on their page. Then they beat Southeastern Missouri State 31-13 before getting their first win against a bigger school against Texas. Texas was competing in the first half, but they went on to blow them out 44-23. So this is their first real challenge, and Ole Miss is a good team. Quarterback Bo Wallace has had a solid year so far. Not necessarily a great throwing quarterback, as he hasn't cracked 300 and hasn't cracked 200 in the past 2 games. Only 4 touchdowns, but he hasn't thrown an interception, which means he's not turnover prone, which is very important against good teams. If you turn the ball over against Alabama, they'll definitely beat you. Their offense is not necessarily phenomenal. Running back Jeff Scott only ran for 330 yards this season, and 2 touchdowns. But 330 yards for the first 3 games is solid, except he did struggle against Southeastern Missouri State. but you may attribute that to the fact that he only had 4 carries for 28 yards. This should be a defensive fight for Ole Miss. If they want to win this game, they're definitely going to have to play well on defense, because if they can't pull it out on defense, then they're going to get smashed by this Alabama team. Alabama coming off a win over Colorado State, like I said. They also had that big win over Texas A&M as they go into another top 25 matchup. A.J. McCarron has thrown well on the season, throwing for 702 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He's going to look for a clean week without interceptions, so they can keep it nice. T.J. Yeldon, obviously a phenomenal running back. I expect Alabama to win this game by 14. I do expect it to be close through the first half, but I believe that in the second half, Alabama will show their dominance. They're going to go on to win this one 35-21. So don't expect Ole Miss to bow out, but be ready for the potential that maybe Ole Miss isn't necessarily ready for a team of this quality. Give them a year, but not this year. Next up, the number 2 team in the country, Oregon, with one of the Heisman contenders. You'll see if he's my number 1 or where he ranks on the list. Marcus Mariota going up against one of the best passers in the country. In fact, he is 3rd on the passing list for most yards, but he didn't play last week. Jared Goff has been very good in the mumbling there. Very good in the air. Despite going 1-2, they haven't been held below 30, so they are a good offensive team. I don't expect this to continue. This is their Pac-12 opener, of course, against Oregon. They won't bow out, but I expect this to be a tough game for them. I think they'll go for at least 20 points, maybe get into the 30s, but I think that Oregon's offense is a little bit too fast-paced for them. Oregon, Marcus Mariota has been throwing the ball just phenomenally, throwing for 889 yards and 7 touchdowns, and he's yet to throw a pick, so he's clean there. Only 2 sacks, obviously very mobile. He's rushed for 113 yards in his first game, 122 his second, and didn't need to rush for that much, but because he threw for 456 yards against Tennessee, and he's definitely making his case for the Heisman. And if you think that's not enough, then you have DeAnthony Thomas as your running back, 338 yards on the season, also rushing for 6 touchdowns. He's been on fire, and this team looks great, if you ask me. I see them actually as the best team in the country. I don't see how you can put anybody really above them. Alabama, a good team, but I have yet to see a team that has really been able to give Oregon problems. When I do, maybe I'll reconsider it. Maybe it's this week against Cal. Maybe it's October 12th against UW. I don't know yet. Maybe it won't even be till they play Stanford on November 7th. But we will see. But at this point, they look really good. I expect Cal to put up 27, but Oregon will win this game 44-27 by 17 points, and Oregon goes to 4-0 on the season. Next up, we got Clemson trying to keep their record untarnished. They are 3-0 right now, as they will be playing host to Wake Forest at Memorial Stadium. Taj Boyd has been passing well. Not his best game last game, but still a solid performance. You know, North Carolina State did manage to stimmy him, only 244 yards. Did throw for 3 touchdowns. Better than he did against South Carolina State. So he's better against the North, obviously, than the South. But he's not playing, I guess, as great as I think that he wants to be playing. I look for this as a chance to get himself back on a roll. Maybe throw for 300 yards, get him up in that range. But he's still playing well. Don't take this as me saying that he's playing badly. I still think that he is one of the Heisman frontrunners. I expect them to come out immediately and pushing, trying to get those early points to go up and not have to worry about it late. Roderick McDowell on the ground will be getting as much attention as he needs. They're going to have to establish a good running game, especially with the fact that Sammy Watkins will be missing his number 2 wide receiver to join in with him in the catching duties, as he will have limited playing time. Clemson just announced this, that wide receiver Martavis Bennett will be losing playing time. because of some slashing movements he did. After scoring, he was doing throat slash, and Coach Dabo Sweeney said that he will be limited in his playing time because of those gestures. They will also be without reserve offensive lineman Isaiah Battle, but when it really comes down to it, I don't think that will really have that big of a difference. Wake Forest, they're good. Price has been good this year. They've been able to run the ball averagely well. It's not terrific, but Mike Campanaro has been a terrific wide receiver, going for 354 yards this season. But I see Clemson as a significantly better team, and they won't have a great offensive game, but they will play well on defense, and they'll go on to win this one 27-10. Wake Forest drops to 2-3 and 0-2 in the ACC as Clemson gets their second win in the ACC. Now on to our second top 25 matchup, and we're breaking down my favorite team, Ohio State. So I got to be talking about this one. Two great players will be playing in this game because Braxton Miller will be returning to the field for the first time since, I believe, Week 2 against San Diego State. Week 2 against San Diego State was the last time he played, as he went out on the first drive with a sprained knee. But he'll be playing in this game as he returns. Guyton did a great job filling in. Possibly one of the best quarterbacks in the nation during his time playing. Was just great. They had help, obviously, from Ezekiel Elliott last game. Jordan Hall was amazing on the ground. Devin Smith and Corey Brown, terrific wide receivers. But Braxton Miller is a whole nother level. And, he should be a solid contributor to this team, especially because he's still one of the Heisman favorites. Actually, on the ESPN Experts poll, he's still on there, despite missing the couple of weeks he did miss, even though he isn't in my top 10 right now because I haven't seen him play against a quality team yet. But this will be his opportunity to come out and prove that he's fine, that this injury isn't a killer injury and this won't knock them out. But they're obviously going to have to watch out for Wisconsin. Sophomore quarterback Joel Stave is thrown for 761 yards, but 3 picks in 4 games. He's got to make sure he doesn't have those costly interceptions, because against a quality team that obviously has an SEC-type defense with Coach Urban Meyer coaching that D, they got to make sure they limit their turnovers. At running back, one of the people on my Heisman list, I'll tell you where he comes in later as well. The sophomore out of Kenosha, Wisconsin, has rushed for 624 yards and 7 touchdowns. There hasn't been a game where he's gone below 140 yards. Has had a touchdown in every game. He has been on fire. It's tough to have the same level of success that he has. It's very difficult to obtain that. You don't see many teams also that have a running back right after him who's equal or possibly one day better. You look at James White, obviously a great player. He is a senior, though, so this will be his last year. 442 yards and 3 touchdowns, giving them 2 heads of a 3-headed dragon. But then, you look and you go right below him and you have Corey Clement. So another player that's good. This guy is a freshman. So he'll be playing after Melvin Gordon leaves. 334 yards and 4 touchdowns. So a 3-headed dragon here. Looks very good. And I don't know what to say. This team looks really good offensively. I think it'll be up to Ohio State being able to transition from such a weak team into a good team. But please don't overlook Ohio State's running back. Jordan Hall was on fire for Ohio State. He did get limited carries against Florida A&M, but that was really because they were destroying them. So they brought in Ezekiel Elliott, their third-string running back, who was amazing. Rushed for over 140 yards, I believe. Let me check that out for you guys right now. Ezekiel Elliott, last week against Florida A&M, rushed for, 162 yards. So that's pretty impressive. And 2 touchdowns. And this team has a lot of running backs, actually. Jordan Hall, and then you have Carlos Hyde, who returned from suspension last week against Florida A&M. Only went for 41 yards on 5 carries, but still looked good, as this team has another potential 3-headed dragon when used right, especially with return of Braxton Miller. I think this will be one of the closest games we've seen all year, and this may be Ohio State's toughest game, but I still see Ohio State coming away with this one. I'm going to go by 10. I'm going to go with the score 24. No, I'm going to go... This is a tough one, because I don't want to put Wisconsin with too little points, especially because I think Ohio State doesn't have the defense they really want right now. I'm going to give them 24. 24-34, the final score. I do like Wisconsin. That's why I wanted to give them the points they deserve. And no disrespect to them, but Ohio State is still a slightly better team. Now on to number 5, Stanford against Washington State, against Wazoo, but Stanford is a better team. Kevin Hogan, obviously phenomenal quarterback. He's been playing very well, leading Stanford so far. And Wazoo just doesn't have what it takes to stop this Stanford team. Also with running back Tyler Gaffney running for 323 yards on the season and 5 touchdowns. And Stanford, especially after that amazing showing against Arizona State, I have to pick them. It would be a disgrace for me to pick against them. They're going to go on to win by the score of 41-10. Wazoo, no chance, as they drop to 1-1 in the Pac-12, and Stanford goes to 2-0 in the Pac-12. Now on to our best matchup. Ooh, this is such a good matchup. I'm excited to see it. 3:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll be in Sanford Stadium in Athens, Georgia. Coverage on CBS. It's going to be a good game there. It should be a nice day in Georgia. Projected to be around 79 degrees out there. So it's going to be nice and warm there as LSU takes on Georgia. Number 6 LSU, number 9 Georgia. Zach Mettenberger versus Aaron Murray. Should be very interesting to watch. Todd Gurley going at it, one of my Heisman favorites. And, when you look at this game, they both have good offenses. Georgia's slightly better. And then you look at Georgia's defense, which is, in my opinion, slightly better. But I'm going to go with LSU here. I think it's tight, but I think Zach Mettenberger comes out and plays well. And I think what happens is they're going to surprise him because Jeremy Hill will run the ball well. Was amazing against Auburn, rushing for 183 yards, and I think he's ready to run for another 100 yards this week. Zach Mettenberger will throw terrific, hitting top targets. Odell Beckham for a couple of I'd say 2 touchdowns in the game as well. That's what you need from one of your top wide receivers. And then actually their best end zone receiver, Jarvis Landry, will go for another one, possibly hitting a couple of other wide receivers as well. I think that LSU comes away with this one in a thriller, 34-27. I think look for this to be a good game as LSU gets the record to 2-0, and I think Georgia's season now to try to get into a BCS Bowl is over. Don't be surprised if Georgia wins this game, though. Georgia is still a really good team. I really like their defense, but I have LSU in this week. So no upset so far for a pick. I do have an upset coming up later, but now on to Florida State against Boston College. Jameis Winston, too much. We can get this game over with. Jameis Winston has been terrific. Already on the Heisman watch in his freshman year. He looks almost like Johnny Manziel last year, but he's not at the same quality, obviously. Probably won't win it. But then again, Johnny Manziel didn't have the difficulty to win as he does. Right now you have Marcus Mariota up there, Taj Boyd, Brady Bridgewater, Teddy Bridgewater, Todd Gurley, Brett Hundley. So many terrific quarterbacks. It's very difficult in a class like that. But Florida State will take this one 37-7. Boston College, no match. They're going to put up a fight, but they will not come away with one here. Now on to Texas A&M against Arkansas. And don't expect a close game here. Johnny Manziel, too much for them. He is one of the top quarterbacks in the nation right now, if not the best. And they go on to win this one 41-14. Manziel throws for 400 yards in the air and 4 touchdowns, hitting Evans a couple of times for at least a touchdown here where are they playing? That's actually a good question. They're going to be playing in Arkansas, still Fayetteville, but I don't think they're going to pull it away. By the way, it's on ESPN too. Oklahoma State against West Virginia. West Virginia has struggled so far, and Oklahoma State will take advantage of their weaknesses. West Virginia, not a bad team, but J.W. Walsh is a much improved quarterback, and I think he will limit his mistakes I don't think he'll throw a pick, and they'll win this game. What's also interesting is J.W. Walsh also leads the team in rushing, so maybe they can pick up their running game this week. They're going to need to do that if they want to continue to compete. Obviously, starting running back Jeremy Smith hopes to break past J.W. Walsh. You don't want to be staying behind your quarterback. But West Virginia doesn't look like a team that is ready to win. They'll put up 14. I think they'll keep it close in the first quarter, but not much more than that. They'll go down 28-14. Now on to number 12, South Carolina versus Central Florida. Central Florida undefeated, and I'm not going to pick them as an upset. I'm going to pick them in a close game, though. I'm going to make the... I'm not going to pick them in a close game, but I'm going to say that they're going to keep it close through the whole game, well into the fourth quarter. But Jadeveon Clowney, Connor Shaw, just a little bit too much. South Carolina is going to eke out of this one, 27-24, as Central Florida definitely shows that they are a good team behind junior quarterback Blake Bortles, who has thrown for 816 yards, 7 touchdowns, and only 1 pick. And out of those games, before we go to commercial break, and then we'll break down the second half, I think the game to tune into, obviously, is LSU, Georgia. Because they're at different times, you can tune into LSU, Georgia, then Missouri, Alabama. Maybe you'll miss a little bit of the first quarter, and the second half of Wisconsin, Ohio State. Or if Alabama runs away with it, tune into Ohio State, Wisconsin first. So they are making this schedule work right now. But there is another good game that will be on at the same time as the LSU Georgia game. And it is my upset pick. I won't tell you which one it is. If you want to research it, you can. Or you can wait and have the suspense. It's going to be a good game. So stick around to hear my upset pick for Week 5.
Your presentation of national sports is brought to you by Spreaker.com. Broadcast and listen to news, radio, and music with one low monthly rate. Your show will be right back after this word from your local stations. You can contact National Sports in a number of ways, through Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter with the label National Sports. We love to have you guys a part of our show and can easily join us also through text or call. You're listening to the National Sports radio station on Spreaker.com. America's pastime of baseball is changing as we know it into a sport we've never seen before. Where is the game headed in the next few years? Major League correspondent Cameron Sadeghi has the answer to that question next on the National Sports radio station from Los Angeles, California.
What's up? We're back after commercial break. Had a little technical difficulties there. But yeah, we're back, ready to break down the games. And I said that I had the upset pick for you that would be going on at the same time. And I'm going to keep my promise there and just dive straight into it. And the game is Oklahoma versus Notre Dame. I believe it is Notre Dame. I'd be surprised if I was wrong. Yep. Oklahoma, Notre Dame. Oklahoma ranked 14th. Notre Dame at 22nd. The second year they will play. And here's where I'm going to have my upset pick. And I'm going with Notre Dame in this one. Just straight off the bat, I'll tell you that. That's what I'm going with. Not because I need an upset pick, but just because I like them a little more. Some bias because I hate Oklahoma. But I think that Tommy Rees has just been phenomenal this year, throwing for 111 yards, 8 touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions. He did struggle against Michigan State, and they were playing well, and I expect it to be a similar game, a tight game. And I think that the difference maker, though, in this game, which could actually end up deciding the game, is not on Notre Dame's side, though. I think it is Oklahoma quarterback Blake Bell, who at times has seemed weak at best. Louisiana Monroe, he didn't start that game. 3 for 5 only in that game. They have other quarterbacks that play. Trevor Knight, really, he was the player in the first 2, but he wasn't really playing at his best. And I don't know if Blake Bell is ready yet. Last week, facing off against Tulsa, so he hasn't gotten a real good opponent yet. And I think that'll really play into this. Notre Dame has some experienced players on that team that can compete. Just really quickly, I forgot to say this, just straight up, 224-563-8444 is the number to call, 224-563-8444, or you can follow me over Twitter and tweet me at Tibbs Taborda. Again, follow me at capital T, IBS _capital T, ABORDA. Again, capital T, IBS _ TABORDA. So follow me and tweet me, or, call in. So, back to the game. Blake Bell has only played one game. Only, one game on your belt isn't necessarily enough. Meanwhile, on the other side, as I said, Tommy Rees has played each game this season. Threw for over 300 yards in the first 3 games, even against Michigan. So I think Michigan State was maybe not a fluke, but I do think that he will rebound. I do think he'll throw for at least 250 yards. Won't have the same success as he's had. I think what's also key for them is that they limit their turnovers, but their defense definitely has to apply pressure to Blake Bell and make sure he's working for everything, especially in his second game. Try to maybe even make them switch back to now backup quarterback Trevor Knight, the freshman out of San Antonio. Just got to make sure their offense is disrupted. They are a good team. They're 25th in the NCAA in scoring. They are 16th in rushing yards. So now you got to go to their running backs, and we're going to start with Brennan Clay of Oklahoma. He's a senior out of San Diego, California. He's run for 262 yards and 2 touchdowns so far on the year. And you may be saying, well, how can they be 16th if they've only ran for 262 yards? Well, the answer is the rest of their running backs. Damian Williams has ran for 161 yards. Trevor Knight, the quarterback, has ran for 145 yards. And Roy Finch has run for 110 yards. Not to mention 66 from Keith Ford as well. So obviously getting some good numbers in the run game. So if Notre Dame can apply pressure, though, to the quarterback and really knock him out of the game, then they're going to make that running game really have to do it all for them. Because if you look at Oklahoma, they struggled against West Virginia. In that game, their running game was very efficient. Clay ran for 170 yards, Williams for 95, but Knight was only able to go for 119. So you see, when their passing game is not working, then their running game can't get it done by themselves. They were only able to score once in that game. They were only able to score, I believe, twice in that game. And a 1-yard pass, and that was their only score. So they got a passing touchdown, but their running game isn't able to do it by themselves. They were able to kick 3 field goals, but Notre Dame's offense is too good for that. And so my key for Notre Dame is to knock out their passing game and make Blake Bell work. My key for Oklahoma to win this game is it's the same thing, make Rees work, because their running game is good. Don't get me wrong. They have a decent running game, but it's not amazing. It's ranked 102nd, so not terrific. But they really have to make Rees work, because Rees is a terrific quarterback. They're 33rd in the nation in passing yards. So if they can make Rees work, then they can come out of this game with a win. I just see Notre Dame being too much. I think their defense is going to be going right at them, and Notre Dame will improve their record to 4-1, really preparing them for a tough matchup against Arizona State, followed by USC, then a little bit of an easier stretch with Air Force, Navy, Pitt, and BYU. Don't get me wrong, BYU is still a good team, and of course, their last game of the season, Stanford. So that's my upset pick of the week. I'm hoping now to go 1-1 on upsets. Of course, I wasn't right last week. Trying to turn this around. It hasn't been at its best, my upset radar. But hopefully I get it back on track. Now on to Miami in South Florida. Number 15 Miami definitely should win this game. I don't think there's a question about that. South Florida 0-3 on the year. They haven't been able to get any kind of offense going. They've lost every single game. Their best game was against McNeese State, where they were able to put up 21. But against a quality team like Michigan State, only 6 points. And only 10 against Florida Atlantic. I don't see how they can come out of the game with a win. Their starting quarterback right now, Bobby Eveld, has only thrown for 205 yards on the season. He was benched last game he couldn't even do anything. He went 1 for 2 with 2 yards, and they decided to take him out of the game. They brought in sophomore Stephen Bench, who wasn't able to do much on that side either, so they haven't been able to get much from their quarterbacks. They will be looking to do so. Otherwise, they will be blown out, but I don't think they have what it takes. Unless a miracle happens, which I don't think it will. South Florida definitely wins this game. I say by the score 31-6, and South Florida not looking good at this point. Now on to our next matchup. This will take us to number 16 and one of the surprise teams this year, UW Washington, playing at home in Husky Stadium in Seattle against another undefeated Pac-12 opponent, Arizona. Arizona this year, not the best competition. UNLV, University of Texas San Antonio, and Northern Arizona, but their defenses looked good in those couple of games. Their offense isn't necessarily terrific, but they've done pretty well in their games. But look at Washington on offense. How can you stop this? Running the ball, total yards, they're third in the country. That's a pretty good number there. Throwing the ball, Keith Price has been throwing it terrific, 879 yards. Only thrown it for, surprisingly, I thought that said 1 touchdown. Oops. 7 touchdowns. Okay, that's not surprising. And 1 interception, so he's managed to keep the turnovers down. 18th in the country in passing yards. 9th in rushing yards, behind starting running back Bishop Sankey, run for 446 yards this season. So he's looking good as well. So their offense definitely working there. Points scored, they are 19th in the country. But don't doubt Arizona's offense. Not amazing, but they're still 59th in total yards, 120th in passing, so not great in the passing department, but their running backs have been able to get it done. They've got a two-headed monster. Kadeem Carey has run for 299 yards and 4 touchdowns, so Kadeem is he's playing well, and you also have to look at second running back Daniel Jenkins, 239 yards and a touchdown. So that's working for them. But they haven't had the best competition. I think Washington has played up against a couple of better teams. Washington wins this game 35-21. Now on to number 20, Florida. They are 2-1 on the season. They bounced back after that loss against Miami with not an amazing victory, but a good win over Tennessee to start their SEC season. And Kentucky has never been a great SEC team. Florida did lose Jeff Driscoll, but I think that they rebound. They're going to win this game at least. Maybe they'll win against Arkansas. I still think they'll win that, but then it gets tough with LSU, and then 2 weeks from then, Georgia. 2 weeks later, South Carolina, and 2 weeks later, the in-Florida matchup, Florida State versus Florida. Not in the SEC, but still a big matchup. But Florida will come away with this victory, 27-10. And that brings us to, I believe, the final top 25 matchup. Let's see, we've gone through everybody. Wow. On to the last one, and newly crowned Fresno State, now in the top 25. And their offense has looked good. They have the 6th best passing game. And that's got to be attributed to starting quarterback Derek Carr throwing for 121 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 1 interception, and leading them with 460 yards. Just a terrific game and 4 touchdowns against Boise State. Boise State dropped to 2-2, but Fresno State's looking good to start this year with a tough win against Rutgers. They beat Cal Poly. They had their game against Colorado postponed. I'm not sure when that will be, but this is another. They got to play well against Hawaii. Hawaii, you don't want to take them as a pushover. Maybe not amazing, and maybe with a slight reschedule, but they do need to get every win if they want to get into a good bowl game. They are 0-3 on the year, and they really haven't been able to compete in any of their games. So I'm going to take Fresno State here, and I think they're going to go to 4-0. I say they win this game. I'm going to go with, because of their passing game, I'm going to go in the 30s. I'm going to go 34, and I'm going to say Hawaii does manage to score twice, 34-17. So Hawaii does play averagely well, but they're still not good enough to knock off Fresno State. So that's our top 25 for the day. Those are all of the matchups there, and if they got to get the wins. The big teams have to get the wins. Some teams that really need wins right now, even though Ohio State's 4-0, they need to go to 5-0 because they've been without Braxton Miller, and they need this win. They have a lot of pressure on them to go undefeated this year. And I saw somebody comment about USC, that they're the 2012 USC. They're not even close. They're considerably better. But they have to prove it, and they got to come out and win with Braxton Miller back at the helm of this offense. Georgia needs to win over LSU, even though I said that LSU will win. I just like LSU, but I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia did. They need this win. They need Gurley and Murray to play terrific. They need Gurley to pick up at least 100 yards on the ground, and Murray to continue his phenomenal throwing. Both of those players have been phenomenal on the year. Because if they lose this, they'll be 2-2 on the year, 1-1 in the SEC, and their BCS bowl bids are just completely dashed. Their hopes are done. So they need the win. LSU would only drop to 4-1. So Georgia looking for that big win. Notre Dame needs a win here, especially because they already lost a game this year to Michigan, and they don't want to lose again. Getting a lot of criticism, so they want a big win here. Fresno State needs a win on Sunday because they want to prove to everybody that they are still a good team. And, if they lose this game, then they're going to get a lot of heat. Next up, USC against Arizona State. Arizona State, a very good team. And USC on this year 3-1, but they're not going to be 3-1 for long. Dropping to 3-2 after this week, in my opinion. Arizona State will pick up this win by the score of 37-10. Trojans just aren't doing what they need to do. That's why I think Lane Kiffin is gone after this year. But Arizona State just too good for them. So it's a big one. It's a big one for USC. They're going to need a win. But I don't think they have what it takes to win. Even though they have one of the best defenses statistically in the country. Though that may be attributed to not necessarily the best teams in Washington State, Boston College, Utah State, and Hawaii. But this is their first big matchup against Arizona State, trying to get them prepared. If they can win this, Lane Kiffin will definitely have a little boost, but that probably won't be enough necessarily. They'd have to keep winning. But this is a big game for the Lane Kiffin regime, so to speak, in USC. A couple of other matchups just to watch for not top 25, Utah State against San Jose State. David Fales really needs to pick up his draft stock. Hasn't been as good as many people expected. Utah State will try to win that game because, they're coming off a loss to USC, a tough-fought one. I do think San Jose State will right the ship, bring themselves to 2-2 on the year. Another close game for Utah State, 20-14. BYU, had that big upset against Texas, but they haven't been playing as well as they probably wish they had been. They won that game, big upset there to go to 1-1 on the year, but they lost to Utah. They'll look to bounce back against Middle Tennessee, and I think they will. Close game, 21-14. Looking at the other games, not many great top 25, non-top 25. Boise State, I got to talk about. they're going to definitely want to bounce back, and against Southern Miss, it should be no problem, 28-13. But if they lose this game, they'll drop considerably again. They dropped to 2-3 on the year. That would be a really big surprise. 2-3 could potentially put them. This is just not setting up well for their conference season. Fresno State definitely looks primed to win this conference. And that's it for our predictions on the scores. And, when we return, we'll be talking about some of the leaders in the stats, some of the players that are primed for big nights, and then we'll finish up with our Heisman predictions, so stick around.
Hi, this is Sam Rosen, and I'm here with Sam's Situation.
Good afternoon and welcome into the corner. It's Chris's Corner here on Spreaker.com, a national sports affiliate.
Hello and welcome to the Cameron Sadeghi Show.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Deep Sports Talk. This is affiliated with National Sports.
Cameron Sadeghi, Chris Sylvester, Sam Rosen, Andrew Goldstein, Daniel Levy, and the entire broadcast crew with Commissioner Robert Dieters. You are live from National Sports Radio Station in Los Angeles, California.
We're back, and I got what you need, a little more college football here. I'm going to wrap up the show. This will be our last segment before we leave you, but at least we're going to have at least another 13 minutes and 3 things to talk about. And before we dive into Heisman and stat leaders, just who could be primed for games this week, I think you have to look at, first of all, Oregon. Marcus Mariota will be primed for a big week against Cal. Cal not with a great defense. I think Mariota continues to improve his Heisman stock. Ohio State, Wisconsin, look for Melvin Gordon to have a good week against an Ohio State defense that hasn't been terrific. But also on the other side, look for Braxton Miller to bounce back big with a good running game and a good passing game, and hopefully getting them to 5-0. On LSU, you obviously have to look at Zach Mettenberger. He'll need a big week in order to win this game. I do think he will have a big week, but also look for Todd Gurley to have a good week as well. Now on to Oklahoma. As I said, what Notre Dame should do, I told what they need to do, and that's knock out Blake Bell. But because of that, look for running backs. Look for running backs Clay and Williams to both have good games, as one of the best running games continues to run well on the ground. So look for them to have big weeks this week. And now on to my last big performer. And how can you do it without talking about Jameis Winston? I think he'll have a great week against a Boston College team that hasn't been amazing defensively, allowing 35 points against USC. Jameis Winston, look for him to go for at least 300 yards, possibly 3 touchdowns, and maybe even run for a good 50 yards on the ground as well, and possibly even add a touchdown on the ground. So yeah, look forward to that. Jameis Winston should have a good week, and that concludes, our score breakdown, our predictions on those things. So let's get into some of the stat leaders, and let's start in the passing game. In number 1 offensive passing yards, repeat person, not number 1 last week, but Sean Mannion of Oregon State, now at 1,640 yards in the air, 15 touchdowns, I believe. 15 touchdowns thrown and 1 interception, so he's been playing well. His only game, obviously, that he didn't do well against was... he even did well in that game against Eastern Washington, so he's been good. If Oregon State's defense was better, they would be a team that could compete. Next up, Ball State's Keith Wenning continues to stay in this list, so that's a surprise there, as he stays in it at 1,315 yards. But Wyoming's quarterback Brett Smith is trying to knock him off as second and tied up with 1,315 yards. Also throwing for 13 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. The junior trying to work his way into second and knock Wenning down to third. Now at fourth, we talked about him earlier. Jared Goff throwing for 1,306 yards in the air. Not as efficient as the other ones. He did throw also for 4 interceptions on the season. Now, Wazoo's quarterback Connor Holiday, 1,288 yards in the air, but he's been very inefficient passing, 8 interceptions and only 10 touchdowns, so almost 1-to-1 in that ratio. So the last two, obviously not as high. Followed up, going into 6th, you get into some really good quarterbacks there in Johnny Manziel, and then 7th, Teddy Bridgewater. Nate Sudfeld of Indiana in 8th, Derek Carr of Fresno State in 9th, and Baker Mayfield of Texas Tech in 10th. Now on to our running game, and number 1 is Melvin Gordon, just phenomenal this year, 624 yards on the ground and 7 touchdowns for Wisconsin. Rutgers' Paul James is the next person on this list. He's run for 573 yards on the season. He's also tacked on 6 touchdowns for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, as they're looking good in their run game so far. Maybe the record not what they want. You know, they got that tough loss earlier on the year against Fresno State, and Derek Carr, of course, as we talked about a second ago, one of the top 10 throwing for yards passers. But Rutgers still playing well. Now on to a surprise here. Western Kentucky's Antonio Andrews is now in 3rd, 545 yards running, in part because of his 213-yard performance against Morgan State. Possibly that may be why he's on this list. Next up, the Toledo running back out of Lockport, New York, David Flulin, 497 yards, so just below that 500 mark. He also has 4 touchdowns on the year. And once again, another weak team. They're feeding off of him. Ran for just, oh wow. See, if he had run for 200 yards against Central Michigan, he would have been at 500 because he rushed for 3 yards short of that, and he's 3 yards short of 500. So he ran for 197 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. So you can attribute the last 2 possibly to that. Now on to Arkansas running back Alex Collins. The freshman looking good, 481 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Look for this to be a cornerstone of Arizona of the Razorbacks, of Arkansas's offense for the future. Obviously a freshman, so he's got a couple years to go. After the top 5, number 6, you got Mark Wiseman, who's been running well. Amir Abdullah, Trey Madden of USC, Bishop Sankey of Washington, and James White, also of Wisconsin. So Wisconsin has 2 out of the top running backs. Jordan Hall did drop out of this. You can attribute that to a weak game last week where he didn't really have to get that much attention. The top quarterback running is Travis Green of Bowling Green State University and Jordan Lynch of Northern Illinois University. Let's see. Jordan Lynch has run for 404 yards. And where did I see the other quarterback? Who did I say? Bowling Green. Oh, Travis Green is a running back. My bad. The second one was Taysom Hill of BYU, 400 yards on the ground. So 2 good running quarterbacks. Receiving this year, Brandon Cooks of Oregon State has gone for 639 yards and 7 touchdowns. Mike Evans of Texas A&M has been hooking up with Johnny Manziel really well, 575 yards. He's also tacked on, not the highest number on this list, but 3 touchdowns, still efficient. Willie Snead of Ball State, probably as a result of having a high passing yard quarterback in Keith Wenning. He's gone for, 480 yards and also has 4 touchdowns. With 3 touchdowns and 471 yards on the season, Jordan Matthews of Vanderbilt comes in at 4th, followed by Kansas State Tyler Lockett, who has 469 yards in the air this season. In 6th, you have Allen Robinson of Penn State, Tulane's wide receiver Ryan Grant, followed by Paul Richardson, and tied at 9th, Utah's Dre's Anderson and Titus Davis of Central Michigan University. So that's it. You have some big players there, and Odell Beckham actually at 12th in wide receiving, but he'll be looking to break into that category this week. Now we go to the defensive side of the ball. Martin Ifedi. Wow, a lot of people are tied at 5.5 sacks. Marcus Whitfield of Maryland. Louisiana Tech's IK. Oh, that's a funny name. IK, that's his first name. and it's capitals. There's no, like, periods or anything. It's just I-K. Ick. It's capital. I don't know how to pronounce that. His last name, I don't know how to say that either. N.M. Kali, so, what? Okay, that's a funny name. N.M. Kali. Tough name there. Then Memphis, Martin Effetti, and Chris Smith all tied. Chris Smith of Arkansas. Surprisingly, not many of them are linebackers, only Marcus Whitfield. The other three are defensive line, defensive ends. And they're all tied at 5.5 sacks. Vic Beasley of Clemson, really helping Clemson's defense out a lot at 5 sacks. Virginia Tech, J.R. Collins, 4.5. Wyoming's Eddie Yarbrough at 4.5 sacks. And also tied up there with Collins and Yarbrough is Darius Smith of Kentucky at 4.5 sacks. And to close out the top 10, George Uko of USC with 4.0. Aaron Donald with 4.0. And we got to go a couple more. Morgan Breslin of USC, also 4.0. And Yannick Cujo-Virgil of Maryland at 4.0 sacks as well. I love that name. Yannick Cujo, that's the best part of it. Cujo-Virgil. Okay. I like that name. I'll probably repeat that again and again. That's just a cool name. Now on to the interception leaders. Stanley Jean-Baptiste of Nebraska. I believe he was on this list last year at 4 touchdowns. Tied with Oregon State's Steven Nelson. Then at number 3, Ibrahim Campbell with 3 interceptions of Northwestern. B.J. Lowry of Iowa. Ciante Evans also of Nebraska. Washington State's DeMonte Horton. Michigan's Blake Countess. Tremaine Bondurant of Arizona. Justin March of Akron. Marcus Smith of Nevada. And Brandon Facison. We had that one definitely last year because I remember talking about how weird that name was, if it was Facison or Facison of Virginia Tech. They're all tied at 3 interceptions since I read Ibrahim Campbell and down. Lots of these. Let's see. Nebraska once with Jean-Baptiste. Northwestern, Ibrahim Campbell. Iowa, Lowry. Nebraska again, Evans. Michigan, Blake Countess. And I believe that's it. Yeah, that's it. But 5 out of the top 11 that I've just said are from the Big Ten, and 2 out of Nebraska. So that's that. At least they got some defense going on there in the Big Ten for a conference that is being highly criticized. Out of those interception yards, out of those interception leaders, the big interception yard people are DeMonte Horton, Stanley Jean-Baptiste also on there, and not anybody, or Tremaine Bondurant is also up there, but that's it for the top ones. Blake Countess at 11th, unfortunately. Also up there, Vinny Sunseri of Alabama, Dior Mathis, the cornerback of Oregon, Colin Ellis, also a linebacker on Northwestern, so that's surprising, a linebacker getting up there, and followed by another linebacker, Tyler Marcotis, also of Georgia Tech. He's also gotten up there. So that'll do it for our stat watch on the week. So now we're going to conclude, obviously, with our last section, and that's the Heisman Watch. Let me just give you a rundown of the candidates right now. Marcus Mariota is up there at the top. Manziel, Taj Boyd, Teddy Bridgewater, also up there. And currently in 5th, or not in 5th, but currently also in the top 5 is Melvin Gordon. The ones that aren't necessarily up there at the top right now for me, that are in the, they deserve mention, honorable mention, but not yet there. I'm leaving Sammy Watkins, Jameis Winston, Leish Streisternuk, the running back of Baylor, Brett Hundley, A.J. McCarron, and Todd Gurley out. Also, Braxton Miller, despite not getting the games, I'm still going to leave him in there. But now to the top 5, as I said. At first, I'm putting... I'll go with 5th first. At 5th, I'm going with Melvin Gordon. Yeah, why would I do first? That just ruins the suspense. Melvin Gordon at 5th. He's been running terrifically for this Wisconsin team. Hasn't shown much signs of slowing down this year. You obviously have James White right behind him, putting some pressure on him to continue to run well. But when you run at his level, it's unlikely that you're going to get substituted out at any point as a starter. 624 yards and 7 touchdowns, running for 11.8 yards a carry. And he's definitely looking like the best running back in the country. Also, getting that competition, obviously, from Leish Streisternuk, as well as, what's his name? Can't believe I forgot this. Todd Gurley. There we go. Todd Gurley, another one of those honorable mention people. So now we move on to number 4, and that's going to be Taj Boyd. Taj Boyd obviously doing well. He's continued to drop down my list. I just haven't liked the level that he's performed at. I think he's played well, but not at number 1 level yet. And I think that he can pull it back together. But at this point, he is not there. I wouldn't be surprised next week if he doesn't perform, if he won't drop off the list completely. Brett Hundley could possibly take his spot. Maybe even AJ McCarron, Todd Gurley, or Leish Stronach. At number 3, and this is where it got really tough. I knew who my number 1 was without any question, but really, it was really tough, and I put Teddy Bridgewater here at 3rd. Very close. Bridgewater has been great this year for Louisville, leading them to a undefeated start. And Bridgewater, he could be the number 1 pick in next year's draft, so I think he's really going to have to continue to play well. And he's thrown for 1,214 yards and 14 touchdowns. So stats are eye-popping. But he hasn't had really great competition. Florida International, Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky, and Ohio. And they don't, at this point, play a top 25 team. So we might not know until their bowl game whether or not he is as good as those stats indicate against high-level competition. I do believe he will be, though. Now on to number 2, and this will tell you who my number 1 is. Number 2 is Johnny Manziel. And I put him on there above Teddy Bridgewater. And some people may dislike this. Some people just don't even dislike it because they think he's worse. They just dislike it because they don't like Johnny Manziel, and that's perfectly understandable. He comes off as arrogant and he's a little bit irritating and disrespectful. But for me, when you do a Heisman prediction, you don't put off-field and on-field together. And yes, he's thrown 3 more interceptions and less touchdowns, only 12 touchdowns on the year. But he has thrown for 1,228 yards. And his running game, well, it's significantly better than Teddy Bridgewater. He started off slow with only 19 and 36 against Rice and Sam Houston State, respectively, but picked that up immediately for 98 for Alabama and 102 against Southern Methodist. So he was on fire there. And we're going to take a commercial break and then come back to do number 1. So stick around. Nah, I'm just kidding. No, we're not gonna do that. That would be a little mean. And it's almost time. We're running out of time here, so let's do number 1. In case you didn't know who it was, and in case that little quick commercial break made you a little irritated, it is Marcus Mariota. In case you didn't know, Mariota definitely is the number 1. He got less votes as a number 1 than Johnny Manziel, but I think that's a little disrespectful considering how well he has played. Running it, he's even been better than Johnny Manziel, which is not easy to do. Johnny Manziel, one of the best running quarterbacks in the game. But Marcus Mariota this year, let me pull up his page, has been running it very well, and I think that really got him over the hump, even though he's also thrown well. 889 yards and 7 touchdowns. Something that helped him out a lot is that this the sophomore from Honolulu, Hawaii, has not thrown 1 interception on the year. Very efficient. And now, as I told you, his running game has been terrific. 113 and 122 yards in the first game. Was slowed down a little bit against Tennessee, but still rushed for a touchdown. Marcus Mariota has been amazing this year, and if he continues to play like this, he could be leading Oregon to a long-awaited national championship, and possibly leading himself to a Heisman Trophy, which would be a nice way to start a sophomore season. Just still a very young quarterback, and I think he could do it. I think that it really comes down, though, to him, Teddy Bridgewater, and Johnny Manziel in the end. I leave it up to the other players to prove me wrong. Maybe Taj Boyd comes in and does it. But they are very, very, very good, and Oregon trying to get that national championship that they have waited for so long. And so thanks for sticking around, listening to the show. I'll be back next week to do the Week 6 previews. Hopefully my upset pick of Notre Dame will be right. Hopefully we'll be 1-1. Hopefully the rest of my picks are right. Actually, besides that Arizona State game, and obviously this was an easy week to pick. Besides that Arizona State upset pick, I got every pick right, so that's good. But yeah, hopefully this week, in a much more difficult week to predict, where I had to do a little more mental thinking about my predictions, hopefully I'm able to keep my record good this week. So yeah, thanks for sticking around. Shout out to all my family, all of that. Tune in for my soccer show tomorrow night. I know I didn't do it last week. I apologize for that. I will have it tomorrow. You know, last week it got really busy. It turned out I had a soccer game, which made it really difficult. Had to get my homework done, and you got to do that. It's very important. If I want to go somewhere, in life, in this career, possibly, you got to get the homework done. Can't just tank school. So yeah, thanks for sticking around. Tune into the Blake and Noah show. We're going to try to fit one in Thursday, which would mean 3 shows in a row. If not, we'll probably do it Friday, or we may leave it to Sunday, but we're not sure yet. I'll try to let you know tomorrow. I'll see what happens. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. And for college football, the Week 5 preview show, I'm Noah Taborda.
Shit sound like 007 and 64 shit now. Yeah. Gold all in my change, gold all in my